Hey everyone, my name is Sean Arnold and welcome to the first episode of Duel Therapy. This is going to be a series where I'm going to just kind of show some gameplay, do some deck editing, but also kind of share some theories that I have on my mind and what I've been thinking about the game recently. As someone who's been playing this game for many years, I often think about this game quite a bit and different strategies and different ways to get better as a player. And I thought that we can maybe have a series where I kind of share these ideas and I can get other people's thoughts on different kind of topics to do with the game and hear other experts' opinions. In today's session, I want to talk about trap cards and people's perspective on trap cards in this day and age. What I've learned in the past couple of months is that a lot of people seem to think that trap cards are too slow for the game unless you can guarantee you're going first. There are obviously some exceptions to the rule. If you get certain expensive cards like Infinite Impermanence, which you can activate from your hand, then of course that's going to be fine for you. Or if you have specific strategies like Paleozoic, or maybe even Altergeist that you revolve around them, then the cards kind of pay themselves off for having to wait a turn before you can activate them. But in general, with most decks, a lot of people don't like to play a lot of trap cards because you can't interact with your opponent with them right away. To kind of highlight what I mean by that is, if you are forced to go second, then and you have a trap card in your hand, unless it's a special type of trap card, you can't use that card ideally until turn 3 of a game. And that can be kind of bad. So a lot of people think it's too slow and therefore opted to go for more hand traps in this day and age so they can interact with their opponent on turn 1 and or turn 2. So when I decided to get back into the game and start building a new deck, I decided to try and focus on collecting hand traps more. And you can see in this build I've got Draw and Lock Bird for the certain combination for Trick Stars. I've got Effect Failure and DD Crow. But now what I'm starting to wonder from my experience is it better to run a hand trap just to have a hand trap as opposed to maybe a stronger trap card which has a lot more power or can do a lot more with itself? I might not be able to use, say, something like Solemn Strike on turn 1 if I'm going second, but Solemn Strike can do a lot more than, say, Effect Failure or DD Crow can ever hope to do. It may also be a case that because it's only certain hand traps which are better than other big power trap cards, that maybe that's something I have to consider. But that's what I'm going to be looking at through some dueling today, and I'm going to be talking about that throughout the video. But if you have an opinion on that, please feel free to share. In today's video, I'm going to be deck testing my budget Trickstar build, which I'm going to be taking to the locals tonight. In fact, when this video goes up, I will be at the tournament trying to get some games in and hopefully trying to get a couple of wins as well. This is my budget Trickstar build, and I decided to make some modifications to this for the first game we're going to go into. But this idea here with this deck is that I have tons of cards which I can use if I'm going to have to go second. I have my Kaijus and Cyber Dragon in order to break a board if I'm going second, Dark Hole to basically wipe monsters off, and I've got hand traps like Effect Failure, Draw and Lock Bird and DD Crow to hurt my opponent if my opponent is going first and I can interact with them. And then the idea is that come turn game 2, if I lose the first game, I can bring in some more powerful trap cards to counter my opponent because I'll be able to set them on turn 1. But for this first game before we go into, we're going to go and try a slightly different build, not that one. We're going to go into this one here, number 3. I wanted to make a couple of changes in order to kind of not rely so much on Pot of Desires for consistency, and I brought in the Brilliant Fusion engine. So in this game here, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Brilliant Fusion, Trick Clown and Garnet in order to use Seraphinite, and we'll go see how that works. I've also increased the number of Cyber Dragons to get more consistency with that, so I can use Mega Fleet Dragon a little bit more often. So we're going to go into this first replay here, and in this first replay we are going to be playing against heroes. So this is game 1 for myself against a hero deck. Now in this game here, I got the option to go first, and as you can see, I was very fortunate to have Brilliant Fusion in the first turn. I got Seraphinite out, which was great, with Trick Clown, but what I don't really know what to do is to do with these monsters on the field once I have them there. I don't really like sending Trick Stars to the graveyard unless I need to, and so I had these 2 monsters, and I really didn't know how to use my extra deck to kind of utilize them. What I also didn't realize is that Trick Clown does not activate when sent to the graveyard for a Link Summon, which is kind of crazy. I thought that would work, but apparently it doesn't, so I might have to take out Trick Clown. Anyway, you've seen that I've gone into Decode Talker because Decode Talker has some kind of protection if a card that's if it's ever targeted, so we can kind of negate some stuff. But turn 1 link summons, I really don't know what to do with that. So if anyone has any tips on that, please let me know. I really need to work on my combo strategies for my extra deck a lot better. It is turn 2 of the game here, and you can see my opponent is playing Masked Heroes, using some of the newer Masked Hero cards, and I've been doing some banishing to burn my opponent, which is great because Trickstars can do a lot of damage, but it's all about actually seeing the game. And right now, in a situation where my opponent has some big monsters on the board and a lot of threats, and I'm having to crash into them in order to make them plays. But they've got out Dark Law, and at this point I wasn't sure whether to go for another link summon, but I decided just to keep the Trickstars on the board and see what happens. Light Stage has done its effect in order to get rid of Call by the Grave, but Call by the Grave chained to it, so it got rid of Seraphinite, which isn't going to hurt me too much. And so my opponent has Dark Law, and before they end their turn, I decided to use Reincarnation to burn my opponent, and I managed to get the win there. So Brilliant Fusion is nice. I did manage to get a double Candida play, so I normal summon Candida, bounced it back with Icarus, normal summon it again. So that got me a lot of searching, but I really don't know what to do with those monsters now they're on the field. So if anyone has any advice for maybe using Brilliant Fusion in this day and age, please let me know. We're going to go to round 2 here. I've done some siding, and I really made a big mistake here. I thought to myself I'd bring in my trap cards, because I don't know why, for some reason I thought I would be going first. But no, I actually ended up going second, so I didn't really stick to my theory there, but we'll see how things kind of work out. So first turn, opponent is using Stratos, he sets down Mask Change, and it's over to my turn here. And this is the idea behind this whole trap cards. I had 3 cards which I actually can't use right now. My opponent, I did try to use Eater of Meanings to attack my opponent, but that didn't work out. And he used a new card which I have not seen before called Masked Hero Blast, which can actually return spell and trap cards during our player's turn to their target's hand, which is nice. Torrential Tribute was nice to use there. I managed to clear out the field. TT seems to be actually kind of good. I kind of like using TT, and having it in the main deck is actually kind of awesome. So considering actually main deck in TT, I did take out my hand traps for this. I took out a Vet Failer and I took out DD Crow for this. So if you're interested, that's what. No, I didn't do that. I took out the Brilliant Engine. I took out the Brilliant Engine because I don't know what to do with Seraphinite, and I brought in tons of trap cards instead. So anyway, on to my turn here. I'm doing some attacking with the Trickstars. They're doing their damage, and I managed to win the game there. So I did manage to get 2 wins in there against this hero deck. And again, I found trap cards to be very, very useful. I didn't get to use it, but having Dimensional Barrier around obviously would have hurt the heroes quite a bit. And Torrential Tribute put in some work, which is kind of nice. At this point, I decided to make a change to the deck, even though I really shouldn't. When deck testing, you should ideally keep your deck as consistent as possible before you do any changes, but I couldn't wait. I decided to actually get rid of the Brilliant Fusion engine for now, because I haven't received those cards, and when I go to the tournament I won't be able to use them. So I thought, let me put in stuff which I actually own so I can actually start testing that. So I decided to go for back to budget Trickstars, which I have here, but instead of doing this, I decided to maybe put some more trap cards in the main deck, and taking out these cards like Cyber Dragon, Kaijus, Dark Hole, and so on and so forth, and taking out the hand traps to see how that kind of works. So we're going to go into a game here where I'm main decking these trap cards and seeing how it works. Let's go into this game here. We're going to watch a replay of myself against Crawler Mech Knight. Now, I did actually have 3 games of this, but I forgot to record the first, or save the first replay. So this is going to be game 2. He did win game 1, so we're into game 2 here against Crawler Mech Knights. So I'm going first here. I set my traps there. I've got Licorice on the field along with Lost Wind and Trickstar Reincarnation. Really like Lost Wind. My opponent tributing my Licorice for Kaiju, and Gardevoir having a nice big beat stick on the field was actually kind of nice. I really enjoyed having something quite strong on the field because it protects yourself a bit. Anyway, my opponent brings out Mech Knight Purple Nightfall, and I decide to respond to that with Lost Wind, which negates the effect, halves its attack, and that continues even beyond 1 turn, so that's really awesome in my opinion. We're going to use Eater of Millions. One thing I didn't know about crawlers is that they all float. They all have effects that activate in the graveyard, so attacking my opponent's monsters seem to be really bad to do. So I try to rely on Eater of Millions to kind of banish my opponent's monsters instead of sending them to the graveyard. I've got a field full of monsters here, and again, this is another thing which I'm not sure about. I don't really know what to do with my field. I think I maybe should be going into a Link Summon here, but I'm not really too sure. I could have maybe played something and that would have been more effective, but I don't really know. To be honest with you, I'm really quite unconfident with my knowledge of the game right now. And yeah, maybe it shows. So I was actually quite good and lucky to be able to take turn game 2 there. My board was just more equipped to deal with my opponent's monsters. And so let's go into game 3 here. And the deck is basically the same. I'm still using the same card, so no real changes there. So my opponent's going to go first here. He's going to set up his board. I guess the theory of trap cards being slow is the same kind of flip effects, because usually with flip effects you can't use them for a turn or two until you flip summon, but I guess crawlers have ways to get around that. Now this is the kind of board I find hard to deal with. My opponent has 2 big monsters on the field, and not only are they big monsters, these monsters have effects which activate when they're destroyed or sent to the graveyard. And so I decided not to actually destroy them or try and get over them. I decided to try and play defensively. So I've got the double Licorice into play here, and I've got Reincarnation ready for Draw Unlock Bird, and Lost Wind ready to halve my opponent's attack. He plays well Legacy, I think that's Survival or Survivor, and I managed to, once he's excavated a card, I play Reincarnation with Draw Unlock Bird to banish my opponent's hand and get rid of all of his cards. As he attacks me, I decide to use Lost Wind to kind of negate that monster's effect and half the attack, and he does get more searching and more special summoning for it. But Honest and Lost Wind, I love those 2 cards. They're really helpful for kind of playing more of a beatdown style with Trick Stars. On this turn here, again, I can't really destroy his field, because if I attack his monsters, they're going to not only have effects that activate when sent to the graveyard, but also, well, Legacy in Shadow, this card here, will send my cards to the graveyard if I attack them while they're face down. So that sucks. But so I decided just to leave my monsters on the field and do some burn damage to my opponent. And this is the kind of thing I'm worried about, having to deal with these big monsters. Fortunately, I managed to get Lost Wind back, and that's what kind of I really like Lost Wind. It recurs itself. It brings itself back to the graveyard anytime my opponent especially summons from the extra deck, but then it will banish itself. And yeah, I feel like in terms of the idea of trap cards versus hand traps, the problem I'm having with things like Vet Vader, which I hear is really good, and I'm told Vet Vader is really good right now, the use of Vet Vader. The thing is that it's a neg 1 which doesn't really do a whole lot to kind of further my plays. It can stop an opponent, which is great, and it works nicely in some situations. However, you discard a card, you've lost your card, and I can't really take advantage of it further because I've left something on the field that I can't really attack over, or something that will end up being used for a Link Summon. Whereas something like Lost Wind has a similar style problem, where it leaves the monster on the field, but it halves the attack, so I might be able to attack over it or use it in different ways. And plus, it recycles itself; it brings itself back from the graveyard. And so, before I go to this tournament, I'm gonna try and do something like this. Nope, not that deck there. Is it Budget Trick Stars 1? No. I'm going to take this deck here, and I'm going to try and actually work with something like this by having having the trap cards in the main deck and seeing how it goes. I'm going to leave this stuff in the side deck. I might bring in some back row removal instead of Call by the Grave, because I know in my locals there's a lot of people that play a lot of back road style decks, so having them in the main deck might be better than Call by the Grave, but I really love this card. Anyway, that's going to really do it for this video. Thank you guys for tuning in to Duel Therapy. Let me know what your opinions are on trap cards in the game, and if you have any suggestions for me on how I can improve, particularly really could do with some help on my extra deck combos, let me know, and I look forward to any comments. Thank you for watching as always, and take care.